Welcome to Green Ball Extra. I'm Craig Easdown, and today we're going to go over to Southampton again, where the sun is shining, and we're going to talk to Richard Holdsworth, the High Performance Director for Cricket Ireland. Welcome, Richard.
Afternoon, Craig. Good to be with you.
Now, Richard, you arrived in Southampton last Saturday. How have you found the bio-bubble environment?
Yeah, it's been interesting, Craig. Look, certainly different, but a lot of what we've been doing over the last 6-8 weeks with the players and the coaching staff is quite similar. You know, it's the players having to adapt a little bit. You know, we wear a mask everywhere we go. Everyone has to have accreditation. We eat in our own dining room. We've got an excellent team room, which is on the same floor as our accommodation, and we pretty much stick to that floor. We don't mix with England at all. They're on a separate floor. But training and practice, and then the match day warm-up game we had 2 days ago, you know, was pretty normal. You know, obviously guys aren't wearing masks training. They're getting on with their business as they normally would, but just sanitizing regularly as we would be doing back home. So look, it's what's probably different for the players is they're used to popping out to a restaurant in the evening and having a walk and maybe going for a jog in the morning. We can't do that here. You know, we're very much within the confines of the ground, and we eat together, albeit spread out every mealtime. And mealtimes are fairly set, and so you don't have the normal flexibility. But what that's done is ensure that the group is very united. They're very tight knit, and everyone's looking after each other. And it's ECB have done a tremendous job, and the Ageas Bowl in terms of looking after everybody. They really have.
That's great. Now, I referred to you as the High Performance Director. What actually does that mean? What areas of Cricket Ireland do you oversee in that role?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I get asked that fairly regularly, but I think a lot of people probably don't know what I do. But basically, I'm the lead for our strategic plans around performance to ensure our processes and plans around the whole high performance program are fit for purpose and are professional, are being well led. I obviously have to work closely with Sport Ireland, who give us funding towards high performance. A number of other stakeholders, ICC, our sponsors, Sport Northern Ireland. And my job is really to try and ensure that we're getting the best out of what we can, given the budget that we have and given the human resource we have. Much of it is to ensure that we've got the right people in the right places, and all of our programs are being well supported. And those programs are the senior men's and senior women's programs. So really overseeing and managing the staff associated with those programs and the players. Now that we've got a significant number of contracts between the women's and the men's game, ensuring that all of those relationships are strong, professionally being looked after. And then there's the academy and the talent pathway below that. So my job is to oversee all of those areas. And we've got specific people obviously looking after each. We've got 2 senior coaches in the men's and women's program. We've got a talent pathway manager and an academy manager. So my job is really to ensure that strategically we're doing the right things, thinking long-term ahead. You know, if I think about the men's program, we're looking 4 or 5 years ahead and trying to ensure succession planning, looking at staffing, looking at how we can improve all the time. So that's the main part of the job, really.
It must be good to see cricket back up and running. So onto this series in particular, I mean, give us a sense of how much planning and work went into getting this series just up and running.
Yeah, look, it's a hard one to discuss and pinpoint all the different areas, other than to say, look, there's been a tremendous amount of planning, certainly in being here in the Ageas Bowl. I have to say, you know, the vast majority of that has obviously been on ECB's side. They're hosting us. Therefore, we haven't had to do too much around the logistics here. But obviously getting out of Ireland, being properly prepared before we got here, that was huge. It was a great day when we started our training back in the High Performance Centre 6 weeks before we got to this trip. And the players, it was a little bit like Christmas Day, and kids opening their presents. They couldn't wait to get out there and train. They'd been locked in, as we all had, for a long time. But getting that open, ensuring that our protocols and plans were safe, and adhering to all the health and safety measures that have been put in place by the government, both north and south. There's been a tremendous amount of work in the background by a large number of staff to get it going and to get the players training. And we've tried to make it as normal as we can for them. And there's been some difficulties, of course, as most people are facing. But look, we managed to get it going. We obviously had tremendous weather in Ireland during the lockdown, and the weather turned after a couple of days of all the players being back training in Breedy and in Stormont, and we were in North Down for a while as well, in Comber, and again in Pembroke. We've been really well supported by the provincial unions, really well supported by the clubs, but as we know, the weather always plays a little bit of a part in making life difficult for us. But fortunately, we got through. The guys didn't miss too much training throughout. Managed to get in enough preparation to come here and hopefully be ready for our ODIs next week. So it's been a lot of work, but it's been great to see the guys back. And the girls similarly have been getting ready for a World Cup qualifier, which is still planned to go ahead in November. And they've been training as well, started back the same time as the men, but unfortunately haven't got any international cricket at this moment, but they will get into a domestic program very soon, which is great news.
Before we get onto the domestic front, just the intra-squad match that was on the other night at the Ageas Bowl, seemed pretty high scoring and competitive. As performance director, you were probably about the only spectator in the crowd. What were your takeaways from the match?
Yeah, look, I mean, they're a huge number. It was, as warm-up games go, I think, Graham and Andrew as captain were very keen to have as higher intensity around that game as possible. You've got to remember that these guys haven't played a game of cricket at any level or any format since February. So there were certainly a few sore legs the following day, having been out in the field for 50 overs. But they wanted us to get into the game with a lot of intensity. So for me to sit back and see that, there was a bit of niggle around the teams, which was really good. People being very competitive for places, and I think everybody took the game as if it was an international game, in the sense, Kevin, obviously a fantastic 100. A number of the key batters came in and scored runs, big runs. And to score over 600 runs in the game was phenomenal. I mean, I'm looking at now, and I can tell you that the England warm-up game here, Mo and Ali's team were all out for 109. So, they're going to get limited practice out of this game. But for us to be out there for 100 overs or thereabouts, and some really exciting stuff. I think that was some really good bowling performances. The commitment in the field was outstanding, particularly some of our senior players really standing up and showing their skills still, their fitness and their ability to execute.
Are you able to pan your camera and give us a sneak peek at the England game there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It looks literally just over the fence there. I'm not sure if you can see.
It's a fantastic view.
I have to say, the Ageas Bowl is some picture at the moment. We're very, very fortunate, I think, to be here, where we have had, as many people may be aware, there's a nursery ground here. There's an abundance of nets, so we have two blocks of nets, another block of nets on the pitch, a huge outfield, and then obviously we've been training on the main outfield as well. And then there's an indoor school, not that we've had to use it, the weather's been so good, gymnasium at the back of the pavilion as well. So we've been well looked after in terms of very good facilities here. Ground staff have been excellent. They've had their work cut out with the West Indies being here and England, and then now us coming. They've certainly had a lot of work to do, but they've provided some great facilities for us.
And the getting back onto the domestic front, which you touched on earlier. I mean, getting club cricket back was certainly a great scene for a sight for Ireland. But you must be also pleased about the announcement about the Interpros and Super 50s the other day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think everybody in the cricket community at all levels was looking back probably 8 weeks ago and thinking, are we going to see any cricket at all on the island of Ireland this summer? And yeah, we put plans together. I don't know how many times. I think I ended up with about 8 or 9 different versions of a domestic program, writing the protocols to get back to club training and playing, and then our elite protocols. There was a small group of us, sort of management involved in that project, and yeah, it took an awful lot of time to get things right, and a lot of consultation with all of our stakeholders. And similarly, we've done the same with our domestic program. We've discussed things in detail with the provincial unions, some of our senior players, obviously some coaching staff, both in the men's game and the women's game, and our high performance committee. And look, we've come up with a schedule which is very much focused on what the next 6 months brings for us. The women have, as I said, got a World Cup qualifier still. It's incredibly important that they prepare for that, and that's 50 over cricket. So for us to be playing T20 matches for them was really not going to be the right focus at all. So we've had to put in place some very stringent protocols that perhaps clubs aren't in the same position to do. We've got medical staff, we've got a lot of support staff, we've got COVID safety officers, and we'll be putting in place a very rigorous environment in order to play those games to ensure everybody's safety. And we're very grateful to the clubs who've given up their ground for both the Women's Super Series and the Men's Interpros. But those 8 games for the Women's Super Series will start on August the 3rd, and they'll go through till the end of September, and that'll give them a really good chance to get some decent match cricket in before they start preparing in more detail for the qualifier in November, early November. And then again, the Interpros, we've got, well, certainly we up until a few days ago, we had a World Cup to go to in October. And similarly, these games this week are World Cup Super League games. And then we have more of those next year, and early next year, early January, we play Afghanistan in India. And we've got to assume that those games are going to go ahead and ensure that those players can get as much out of the rest of the season as possible. So we've mixed it up with a T20 competition to start with. And then in September, when hopefully, everybody will be very used to the environment that they're playing in, we can play a longer format and play the 50 over games as well. And we don't know what program we're going to get towards the end of the year. We're looking at more match cricket, certainly competition for the men as well in the latter part of the year. We don't know whether that's going to be possible yet, but we've certainly got a plan as if it's happening. These are professional players. They want to be playing international cricket as much as they can. And we've got a number of games from this summer that we've got to reschedule. And we're not quite sure yet when they'll be rescheduled, but we need to make sure that our players are ready for anything. And hence, the structure of that Interpro competition very much focuses around that.
And equally, you mentioned talent pathways. You must be pleased also to see the academy boys and men getting out this week, to have a run out this week across Ireland in the Northwest, North and Leinster.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, that's our future. So it's so important. And, Pete Johnston, Academy Manager, and Albert van der Merwe, our Pathways Manager, have been looking at all sorts of options for us. They've been working very hard in the background. David Stevenson, our Performance Operations Executive, doing a lot of the logistics around all of that. We would normally be playing over in the UK, in Scotland and at home, with some sort of high quality series from under 15s up to under 19s, with our academy, with some Wolves fixtures. And obviously all of that's been shelved. So, rather than say, well, we'll save that money, we won't play any cricket. These guys have got to play. They're desperate for cricket. We can't have a year where they've had no cricket. That'll create a massive gap and underdevelopment for these players. So Pete and Albert have worked very closely with the provincial unions, who've been fantastic. Their pathway staff, their coaching staff, and operations people, to get some as much internal cricket on the island of Ireland, where government legislation will allow us to do that, allow us to travel, work within the safety measures and the protocols that are in place, and get the best out of it. Obviously, they're playing short form cricket at the moment. They're playing T20. But there's been some tremendous cricket over the last week played, and players that are of absolute interest to the Ireland team in the future. And we need to see those players continue to develop. We need to see them play as much cricket as they can. So it's really been positive to see that. And we're going to see a lot more over the next few weeks at underage level, both in the men's and women's game. And thankfully, let's hope we get some decent weather in August and September, and we can play through to the end of the season. In terms of end of September, the players feel as though they've really got something out of the year. To train indoors over the whole winter, to go onto lockdown and then to train again the next winter, I think would be really tough for everybody. So hats off to the guys. They worked very hard behind the scenes to get all of this together, and shown how much stronger we are working with our provincial unions. There's a huge strength there when we work together. We'll always disagree on some things, but there's been great collaboration, and it's been really nice for me to sit back and see that.
You've touched on the Women's World Cup qualifiers later this year, we hope, and potentially some fixtures in early January for the men. But on the international front, I mean, there are still so many unknowns out there. But give us a sense of what the men's and women's international prospects are like for the rest of this year and into 2021 and beyond. What does it look like in an ideal world?
Oh yeah, look, I mean, in an ideal world, things would get back to a little bit more normality, and we'd feel safe travelling, and we'd get in a decent programme of winter cricket. We still have a Wolves tour planned for the winter in a full member country, a whole month of cricket against a full member A team, and similarly there are a number of potential fixtures and competition for the women. Obviously, World Cup qualification is the goal, but if that doesn't materialise in terms of our success in that competition, the next goal is to ensure that the women qualify for the ICC Women's Championship, and those fixtures would start off as early as March next year against the top 10 in the world. So similar to the men in terms of a top 13 World Cup Super League, we have to ensure our players are ready for everything. And unfortunately, what that means at the moment is lots of plans that may or may not come to fruition, but trying to make sure that we've got a B plan and a C plan, depending on the outcomes of those. Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball, and we don't know how this pandemic is going to go. We hope things for everybody out there in society improve dramatically. But my job particularly, is to ensure that we've got a number of plans up in the air, that hopefully one of those can drop with some success and keep our players working. Their livelihood is cricket. They want to ensure that they're ready for whatever comes at them next. And we've got to make sure that they're getting all the support, both off the field and on the field. A lot of the work over the last few months before they could train has been on psychology, nutrition, lifestyle management, welfare issues, as well as the fitness and physical side of it. They've been doing online S&C sessions. If we have to go back to that, and we hope we don't, we'll be better placed for it next time, because we've learned a huge amount through the lockdown the first time around. So there are things that we would do differently, and we'll ensure that those things happen. But ultimately, I'm desperate for the players to play as much cricket as they can in a as safe a way as possible. And we'll keep working on those plans. As soon as the World Cup, the T20 World Cup for the men, was postponed, I had a number of countries on the phone to me to look at how we can reschedule some of the fixtures that have been postponed, how we can get them into the next 6 to 12 months. And that's the objective, is to try and ensure we can play those matches.
Should be a busy time in 2021 and beyond to fix all those.
Certainly will be, yeah. The schedule will certainly be very busy, 21, 22, and now we've had a 6 months extension to the 50 over World Cup in 23, that again will probably allow us to kick some fixtures into that period as well. So look, it's going to be a busy 2-3 years ahead. And effectively, we've got the potential in the men's game of being in 3 World Cups in the next 3 years, which is astonishing. Would never normally happen, the cycle of global events. And similarly, the women have a qualifier now. They have a T20 World Cup in that period, and the chance of being in a women's championship as well, which is a 2.5 to 3 year competition. So there's a huge amount at stake, and that's dead exciting for the players and staff.
It should keep you off the street for a while. Okay, well, thank you very much, Richard. Enjoy the sunshine. Enjoy Moeen Ali's bowling effort in trying to pin the opposition down to less than 110. We're going to say farewell now. Thank you for joining us.
Not at all. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you. Thank you to the viewers, and farewell for now. Thank you.